Good evening. I will continue to accept the people, as they are coming. Thank you very much to be within this Athena colloquia talk in teaching science. Today we are going to speak about a very hot subject. I mean, whatever presentation I have followed regarding Horizon Europe, everyone speaks about open science. However, I have followed, the first lecture that I have followed about open science was from Ivo, Dr. Ivo Grigorov in DTU in Aalborg, when we were in a school there. So I was very much impressed by the passion of the Ivo and, the potential of this open science. And as we have seen, all the projects that we're getting approval in order to publish in open access journals. So it's something big. And if you check the European Commission pages, everyone speaks about, this open science. So it's a priority, it's a policy priority for the European Commission. It is a standard method of working under its research and innovation. Like using the open science initiative, we are building, European Union believes, and I believe that we are building the trust within the science and the research, and we are sharing, from the first moment, the new knowledge that we produce. And don't forget, this is our tax money. We are getting the money to make research and publish our results in order other people to promote the technology and the science. We are not keeping this for our publication. Even in our publications is one of the principles that we should reveal everything. So open science, works on this. And open science EU priorities along the open science include open data, European Open Science Cloud, which is a very big initiative to share all our data, publications, new indexes and new quality factors. They will be introduced. Until now we have the AIDS index and how many citations we receive. Pretty soon, these kind of indicators, they will be integrated according to the open science standards of quality. So we have education and skills and and citizen science. So everything should be related and all the stakeholders, they should be adapted under this kind of policy. And as I told you, it's a priority in Horizon Europe. So today with us, we have two specialists in open science. It's Dr. Iris Buunk and Dr. Ivo Grigorov. Iris Buunk, probably from her name, you can realize that she's Dutch, but she has a Swiss also passport, am I right? So Swiss. And also Ivo, however, that he lives in Denmark, he's a neighbor of mine and the list. He's from Bulgaria. So it's a country, somehow between Greece and Turkey, not exclusively. So it's a neighbor. And a few words about Iris. Iris is works. And she's going to speak to us about Open Research Europe platform, open science perspective in Europe. She's a community engagement and communication officer of LIBER, ex-research assistant at the Hainde École de Gestion in Geneva, research librarian at the Faculty of Social Sciences in the University of Geneva. She holds a PhD from the School of Computing in Napier University in Scotland. I have received my PhD from University of St Andrews in physics in Scotland. Oh. So this is another, a part of neighborhood we have, we probably have shared the same times in Scotland. And then I will move to Dr. Ivo Grigorov, that he works in DTU in Copenhagen in Denmark. He's a research coordinator in National Institute of Aquatic Resources and many interests, including optimizing strategies for societal impact of research projects by using open science, public engagement in the research process, and open innovation. More things, I believe that, the two speakers, they will share with us. But before we move to the talks, let's go to the Mentimeter. This is some request that I have from the speakers. Go to the menti.com and use the following code. I will type it on the chat. So let me type it: 52 70 46 21. So on the chat you can find the code. So you go to menti.com and the floor is to Ivo. Or do you want me to read the first question? It's like, how would you describe yourself in the higher education institute ecosystem? So you can start to type.
What is the name of the site? Sorry.
The Menti.com. If you go, I will place it again to the chat. So it's like Menti.com. I cannot vote myself since I have launched it. What a pity. So we can see that researchers, the rest of the people, I don't know. Did you manage to go to the Menti.com? Yes.
Yes, it's easy. Thank you.
Hi, George. You should go to the Menti.com. Check the chat, George. Check the chat. So do you want me to go to George? Did you manage to go to the Menti.com? You are muted.
Hello everybody.
Hello.
Where should I go?
If you go to the chat,
Yes.
you can see that you should go to
I don't see anything in the chat.
Eh?
I don't see anything in the chat. It's blank.
I don't know.
Yes, because I think you came after, no? When did you join? Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Menti.com. Okay, thank you.
And okay. Thank you, Elif.
Okay.
Let's give some time to George. Okay, let me move to the second. Actually, there are two questions. So who should be responsible for teaching open science skills? I cannot vote. I don't know why. You trap me, Ivo. You trap me. I believe that we should, as a part of the university, I think that the university we should teach the people from the undergraduate during their undergraduate studies the principles of the open science, because this is part of the training. So should I stop it?
I have finished.
Yeah, the previous question, 9 people they answered.
Would like to see the results, if possible.
You would like to see the results?
Yeah, that was the point.
Yeah, but I have it in another computer. This is the problem. I will send it you. I will send you the results afterwards.
Okay.
So I will tell you. So the majority of the people regarding who should be responsible for teaching open science skills is like the universities, higher education institutions, and the graduate schools. Regarding the first one, what is the profile of the people participating in this meeting today? The majority are researchers, okay? And then we have an equal balance of senior researcher. We don't have anyone from the management. We don't have any rector. I think, Ivo, you will be very optimistic. You know, rectors are like, you know, for talking. And librarians, no librarians. Okay, I will share the results with you after the talks. So let's give the floor now to Iris in order to start her talk. Iris, I think that you can share your screen because I have made you a host.
Yeah.
So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. And I'll put it in a presentation mode, if that's okay with you. I should, okay. All right. Do you see yourself as well on the screen?
I can see, we can see your presentation.
That's all, okay, you're fine.
All
Great.
set.
All set, thank you. So thank you for the invitation. So I'm going to try to make it a bit shorter because we're running out of time. And so just as you said before, I'm working at LIBER, which is a European organization that is supporting research libraries all over Europe, academic libraries, national libraries, and we are part of the project Open Research Europe, which I'm going to present right now. And I will make a link with Ivo's presentation at the end, because we also made a survey about open science connected to this Open Research Europe platform. So Open Research Europe, it's a new platform. I don't know if any of you have heard about it or not, but the point, it's a project from the European Commission and Horizon 2020. It's been operationalized by F1000 Research in the UK. And the point is really to promote open publication, open peer review for all the researchers over Europe. So there is a strong input from the European Commission that everyone use this platform now. So the point of this platform is to provide high quality, reliable and efficient publishing for Horizon Research. It has high scientific standards. And what is important to notice as well, it doesn't have any cost for the authors. So it's a non-APC platform, no need to pay to be published. The your EC Commission ambitions, they really want to be a leader in that via this platform, and to promote open science principles, open data, and early sharing of research as well, which is another great advantage. We'll come back to the benefits of it at the end of the presentation. The point is also to contribute to transparency and cost effectiveness, and exploring sustainable open access publishing business models. It's a publishing service. So there is an original peer review articles first that are posted as preprints. There is an immediate open access with content license for reuse. I will show a bit more in detail how it works with the process. It's an open peer review, as I already mentioned it. And it's connected to the scholarly ecosystem as well. It provides a new generation metrics. So each article has a dedicated metrics page. And it provides explicit and accessible, transparent on business process and publication policies. So all the articles are published on the site for everyone to see. Of course, it's aligned with their AC policy and principles, and it follows example of other funders such as the Wellcome Trust, Wellcome Open Research. I don't know if you know them. The point is to support research across all disciplines. So it's not reserved for only, human science. It's really science, technology, medicine, as you see, social science, humanities. And the editorial guidelines and policies are specifically done for each of these disciplines. Also, it supports many different article types to support disciplinary areas. And the content is searchable by subject areas and by the H 2020 program areas. So you've got some examples here, typically with science, technology, medicine, research article, data notes. You can publish registered reports, study protocols, and so on. Social science as well, data notes, method articles, or humanities, essays, and reviews. So now I'm going to show you a bit more how it works, the publishing model. So this is a general view of the process with the article submission that goes through the preprint, as I mentioned. It goes under an ongoing peer review for a while, and article revision, and once it's passed for the peer review, it is sent to indexes and repositories and can be published. So the first step is upon submission is to assess the author eligibility, check the article scope, check if there is any plagiarism. There is also various checks for data availability, comprehensive checks for ethical guidelines, that is important too. It also supports authors in making data and software fair, which is important, of course. And then there is the production of the article converted to text and data mining formats, PDF, HTML, XML, etc. There is also proofs of an editing necessary, everything that is needed on the editorial aspect. There is then the publication and data deposition. Open Research Europe requires really that where possible, the source data that underlies the results are made available at publication, and this sends back to the open data as well. The sharing of research data, however, must protect the confidentiality, security, and privacy of individuals. It has to respect the terms of consent by authors who are involved and individuals involved in the research. Be consistent with the Horizon 2020 legal, ethical, and regulatory frameworks, of course, to prevent and guard against unreasonable costs. So after that, the open peer review and article revision process is undergoing. You've got open identities. So here we refer really about open peer reviews. Reviewers must provide their name and affiliation, must identify conflicting interest as well for ethical purpose. There is, after an open report, I'm going to show you an example right after. Reviewer reports will be published alongside the article, and they are citable and have viewing metrics. And finally, you have open review status, if it's approved with reservations or not approved. And at the end, you've got the passing peer review, so authors can respond to the reviewers and revise the article based on the comments, and which provides new version of the article that are linked together. So authors need also to achieve a certain threshold of reviewer status to pass peer review and be indexed. So it has to be approved and approved with reservations. So you can see here some example of a paper, version 1 peer review, awaiting peer review, with the status on the right side. Then you've got the name of the reviewers with their affiliation and of course ORCID ID, most of them, and the status of the pre-published article visible to everyone. And another example, you can see more in detail, the reviewer report is really totally openly visible with the responses that can appear next to. And finally, the revised amendment from version 1. You then have data availability that is also accessible, and if relevant, extended data. So yes, so this is just to show you a very short snapshot of this open research platform. It's operational. It's been launched this spring officially. The benefits are various. Open publishing maximizes the reach and impact of research. The preprints enable rapid sharing of work, which is of course important. We've seen that during the pandemic as well, and otherwise for grant proposal, for job applications. There is a citation advantage of linking publication to research data as well. The open peer review enables constructive dialogue with the other experts in the field. And open research also benefits society and its citizens. And here there is also the link to open science that I'm going to make. Publication is based upon the research itself. So it's not perceived as the impact or the impact factor that we know. The articles are published based on the article level content. The authors and control of the publication from start to finish. And this is really an important point. And the publication of all research findings are not just the positive ones. So as LIBER, we've been launching a survey in December among our users that are research librarians or people working in national libraries, also to see how open they are with such a concept of an open platform. And I only took a few numbers to make the link with Ivo's presentation. The one that is about open science, and I thought it would be maybe relevant for the presentation here, depending if there were any librarians. But anyway, I think it's important and interesting to find out that the features of open science considered as most important by research librarians are scholarly publishing, and fair data. You can see strongly that these two aspects are very important to research librarians. And the most important advantage of open science by research librarians is a greater availability and accessibility of research outputs, which completely match the objectives of the open research platform. And one last slide to finish my presentation. The main concern about open science that research librarians have is potential misuse of scientific research outputs. One of them, and the other one is more amount of work required from researchers, which is true, but on the other hand, they have more control on the publication, as we just saw. The emergence of low quality and false science is also a fear that they have. So we at LIBER will organize more workshops and webinars by the end of the year to train all the research librarians or people involved with this platform to show all the benefits that it can provide. So I thank you for your attention, and don't hesitate to check the Open Research Platform online. You've got a lot of material available, and for publications and for researchers. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Iris. So the questions that will come now, or do you want all the questions at the end? I suspect that we can have a couple of questions. So are there any questions to Iris? So Iris, I have a couple of questions. Mm-hmm. Very clear. Okay, thank you very much, Irene. So this open science platform is something different than the European Open Science Cloud. Am I right?
Yes, it is different.
Okay, and because during the discussions of this European Open Science Cloud, there were a lot of discussion. Who is going to do the evaluation? How the papers they will appear? They did not say anything about there's an open access to the names of the reviewers, but still it's under discussion. It's not fully operational as this one that you saw. So I would like to ask you. It's very scary. I mean, remember a young scientist or a researcher to evaluate a paper of a very big name. And this paper, I mean, I mean, it does not, worth it, to be published. How are we going to protect, this name? Because probably then this big name will be an evaluator in proposals, and this name will be there. And then you know how the ego of the people works sometimes. Sometimes this is not the case,
Sure.
but let's say this is the exception. That is not the exception.
Yeah.
How are you going to protect, from consequences the names of the evaluators? And what about the ethic rules? I mean, now it's money. Publication is money. The more publication with the higher impact that you have, the higher the chances to get, a proposal and project. I mean, how are you going to protect not only, the pressure, but also from the ethical point of view, how are you going to protect, the referees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very good question. So there is a scientific committee that is part of the European Research Platform to guarantee any ethical problems that might occur. I don't pretend I have all the answers to your questions.
Of course, I mean, even the European Commission, I asked them the same questions.
Yeah, and as for protection of the people, I mean, I think we are really on a time right now where about to switch from one culture to another, right? So it's really this open access and open peer review. I think it's really quite challenging for researchers, and but on the other hand, once people will have seen all the benefits it has in terms of immediacy of publication, because it's also difficult for young researchers to be published. So it's really to weight, the disadvantage and the advantage of such process. But I believe that at some point there will be a switch, and it's a change of culture as well. And this takes time, of course. But such platform can show really all the benefits of transparency. But yes, the more people will use it, I think the more people will be convinced.
And another question that I have is are there going to be any fees? Because now we publish no fees.
No.
And what about the cost of the people that they are going to maintain the servers? They are going to keep, to make, the evaluation we are doing it for free anyhow.
I didn't have the numbers here, but it's a huge investment from the European Commission for this. So they really want to promote that. And that's why there is no fees for publications.
Okay. However, they say that if you are any Horizon project that we are getting, now there's a funding for an open access. So I suspect this is a circulation of money. We are going to publish on the open access, and this money of the European Commission, they will be invested to this platform or to the other platform that they presented us before 2 days regarding the European Open Science Cloud.
Yeah, and they are transparent about the cost. So I can maybe a bit later I can find the link and send it in the chat.
Yes, and we are going to appreciate if you will send us the presentation, so it will be available. I hope to the people that they were interested in. So thank you very much, Iris. Do we have any question from the rest of the people regarding Iris? So this is the role of the moderator. I should discover always, questions. So thank you again, Iris. And then let's move to Ivo. Ivo, I'm sorry. Ivo will talk to us about should higher education institutions teach open science. And from what I can see from the replies in the Mentimeter, the majority of the people, Ivo, they say that, higher education institutions, they should teach us how to use this open science culture. So let me make the Ivo as well as a co-host in order. I'm learning now my new iPad Pro. That's why I'm experimenting today. So Ivo, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Can you see the slides as you
we
should?
can see. Fantastic.
Excellent. Yes, so we're running out of time, so let's see if we can condense in 10 minutes. I mean, first of all, I gotta apologize because obviously my content is completely mismatching the level of awareness of this group. Usually I walk in with at least 50% of the people saying open science shouldn't be taught in higher education. Therefore, I step in and with 20 slides, I hope to convince you otherwise. You're already convinced, so maybe we should just spend 20 minutes in building a proposal on how we might do that in higher education instead of talking about whether we should do it or not. I understand the Horizon Europe work program came out today. And in fact, for those of you interested in the widening working program, there are a number of open science calls for those present here that have aspirations to integrate it really into the higher education system. Let's see, I'll just gloss over the slides in 10 minutes. Of course, you can have full copies, but maybe it's better that we talk about things in 10 minutes, the remaining 10 minutes of the hour.
Ivo, you have more than 10 minutes. You have 20 minutes.
20 minutes, but let's see if we could split the time and have a little bit of a dialogue rather than just death by slide. Anyhow, this is the key question really we're trying to address. You all already know the answer. You seem to be convinced. What I would do is when I have to convince skeptical researchers or skeptical representatives of the higher education ecosystem from rector down, if you like, is that we would flash a colorful image like this, which seems to be close to the mission statements of most of our research institutions, right? So our research institutions wants to change society, contribute, have an impact, benefit, measurable benefit. The United Nations has framed that into 17 colors and numbers that we might actually slot our research into to give it some societal relevance. And you know, lately the United Nations also gathered the science ministers and their representatives to frame an open science recommendations globally, and how that fits into the beautiful, colorful image of the SDGs. So that's a little bit recent. And talk about recent, just the last few days, in fact, at the G7 meeting, science ministers came together and reiterated their own commitment towards open science, which they have had for a number of years. But really, I think this quote from their 2-page document kind of captures it all. Whether you believe in open science or not, whether you believe that there is enough peer-reviewed studies on its effect or not, this is what the science ministers are saying. You're not going to tackle these global challenges which have the clock ticking on them, if you like climate, like pandemics, like biodiversity loss, on which our economies kind of depend. You're not going to tackle all of these issues unless you commit to transparent, open, and agile research collaboration ecosystems, of which they make open science a central attribute, right? And so this is a very high political level belief. I sometimes like to contrast this belief with the people in our own higher education systems responsible, like, for example, the graduate school coordinators. I like to ask them this question. Should we teach open science? And you'll be surprised by the answer. Well, you on the survey quickly said, duh, it's obvious. Actually, many of the graduate school coordinators think this is open science is simply reduced to access to peer-reviewed publications, which is only at 10% of the true answer. And many of the graduate doctoral school coordinators actually believe this is something the individuals should be responsible for, and it is not the higher education institutions that should teach, which is quite surprising. And so when I go to skeptical colleagues near you, if you like, I'm trying to convince them that their vision of how open science might fit into higher education responsibilities is a little bit biased. I try to throw 3 arguments at them. One is that if you use this thing we're trying to sell you, you multiply collaborations. You will get a stronger individual research profiles because the research assessment system is actually on a trajectory to change. So we need to equip early career researchers with better ways to perform against a research assessment system, which might be different from the one today. And the third point is that actually you can no longer win European funding, at least, if you don't know how to deploy this thing we're trying to sell you. So these are the 3 arguments, but if you had to unite them all, if you had to choose a single word, reproducibility has to be the single most important one, or the research integrity. If your research is not reproducible, and the definition here varies with discipline, but if it's not traceable, transparent, open to independent validation, then what is the point of you spending time and money on it? And I like Iris's 2 slides on the survey of librarians, and I question myself, how would that same survey look if we were to ask it to researchers? Would they put research integrity and reproducibility higher up than, for example, personal impact? So this is kind of the approach we've been trying to use towards skeptical actors and power players within the higher education institutions. Of course, the basic drive is to convince them that their effort might be represented by a caricature like this, where all of their work from 9 to 5, including weekends and evenings and family holidays, can be encapsulated by a research life cycle like this. And at the end, they're evaluated on how well they perform. Although, whereas in the past, you might have been evaluated by how many papers you published, which is just one step of this cycle, we are arguing that in the future, you'll be evaluated along each step of the research life cycle. And now we argue that there are tools that will allow you to make each step of your research life cycle more open, more transparent, more reusable, compliant with FAIR principles that Iris mentioned earlier, and more open to independent validation. And ultimately, it will allow each output of your research, including negative results that Iris mentioned earlier, it will give each output a trajectory, its own lifetime, to be reused by disciplines you never even considered while you design your own research question. And that's what funders are for. That's what they're after. They're looking for measurable societal benefits and reuse of all research outputs in trajectories that you could not calculate at the onset of the research. And of course, in the future, we try and argue the research assessment will change away from just how many papers you salami sliced based on the same research, towards something like a diversity of indicators that measure how researchers perform on various criteria. Do they share negative results? Is their research as a whole reproducible? Do they perform to a certain level of integrity? Do they engage the public based on that research? Do they deploy citizen science as a tool to enrich their own research, but also to engage even further the public into that research? And all of that, of course, melts barriers and walls between society and academia, which is what funders look for. So when we do that to skeptics, they of course ask this question. It's like, okay, great. I don't believe in it, but I have to do it. Obviously, there are mandates. So how do I do it? I'm not going to spend time on this, but there is a whole ecosystem of tools, discipline-specific, life cycle step-specific, that will allow you. Again, this is where the skeptics scream and say, what? I have to learn this whole cloud of tools. And we remind them what it was like when computers walked into our research lives and we had to learn Word and Excel and email. So it's a similar kind of learning curve. And yes, it's not easy, but we have to start somewhere. One thing we try and convince our skeptical researchers is that platforms like this one, platforms like the ORE that you just heard about, break down your research effort into individual objects, which each can be citable, published, some can be peer-reviewed, others simply have a timestamp to make sure that you own them, even though someone else might reuse them. And all of that, if you break down all of your research into components like this, they can be published into in single place. to showcase your own research, and each object can have its own persistent identifier to track its usability, the societal attention on it, how many media outlets talked about it, cited it, and so on. And all of that allows you to gather a variety of measures on how your work is appreciated within and beyond research academia, which is the trajectory of where research assessment is ultimately going. So that still begs the question, okay, what does that have to do with my career, would say the skeptics. So let me show you one of the points that we're trying to put across to them as something that they could really dig their teeth into immediately and get immediate benefit. We've run an experiment over the last 5 years where we approach young researchers who are willing to let us experiment with their research proposals, be at national or European level. And we promise them this: let us play with your proposal, and we promise you, you will get a positive evaluation on certain criteria. The ones that were crazy enough or brave enough allowed the experiment to take place. And what we'll do is essentially we'll integrate open science across the design of their research proposals, from the methodology to reproducibility to the societal impact and to implementation. And then we'll go back and see, does that really make a change? And I'll show you some evidence in the last few slides. I don't expect you to read all this. It's just an example that one of the approaches we are deploying here is that something as administratively or bureaucracy like the DMPs, the data management plans, they are treated pretty much as a checklist on the back of the proposal that people gloss over or do in the last 5 minutes. Frequently, they'll copy paste someone else's, which doesn't fit in. And basically what we're training them to do is to train them to change their mindset from just making data fair and open to making all of their research outputs fair and open. And when they do that, they add disproportionate value to the impact of their research proposals. The evaluation is much shinier, and of course the chances of getting the money is much better. So if one could get all of those benefits, one enables one's research and you can move forward. That's where open science becomes a tool, if you like. You weaponize a bureaucratic concept. This experiment took place across a number of instruments, European and national. This is just a shameless brochure. In any case, so these are the 3 points really we try to put across. Now you might say, okay, show me the evidence. Well, here is the evidence. Does it really make a difference for proposal evaluation on a daily or monthly scale or an annual scale that enables all of your research to take place? Here are some faces that either got extremely high scores or that actually are now performing their research with highly competitive funding from Marie Curie program awarded in the last few years. Here are also, these are individual young researchers. Here are some seniors. These are seniors that actually lead ITN networks, innovative training networks. Each network has 15 PhDs in them. This is what they say. I'll let you judge by yourself, but by judging by the Mentimeter, I don't need to do any convincing. Let's see what the evaluators say in the proposals where open science was horizontally integrated. Here is on the section of excellence. This is what they seem to like. Reproducibility is something that's key. I'm personally surprised that we still can win points just because our research is reproducible. I assume that we should be doing that anyway. At impact, here are some comments that you can see. Of course, all of those will be shared with you later, and we're building our database of these comments to really convince the skeptics to get the first advantage of this. And as you can see, it goes all the way from research excellence design all the way to implementation. Did you put the right resources to make all of the promises true? So the final answer to the whole point of this presentation is, does it really affect tenure? This is where the skeptics think they hold the strongest stone to throw at us. And this is where there's a little bit of more evidence to show that we're on a trajectory of change, which will put young researchers in doctoral schools now, or put them at a disadvantage in maybe just 5 years. I want to introduce you to this gentleman. He keeps track of tenure recruitments, particularly in psychology departments across the world. And last time I checked, there were about a dozen universities from Canada to Europe to Australia who will not give tenure unless you can show track record in open science into your personal research, but also as mentoring the next generation. So, you know, if you take this trajectory 5 years into the future, it's not crazy to believe that this will spill into other disciplines. And that begs the question, should higher education institutions train researchers now in open science skills? And if we don't, do we give them a fair run at a changing research assessment system in the very near future? So I would like to stop here and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion.
Thank you very much, Ivo. Again, a very inspirational presentation. So I have some questions, but if you please stop sharing the screen.
Sure.
Do we have any questions from the audience first? Okay, I have a couple.
You go ahead. I have, but you
Yeah, I
go ahead.
I know my role, but you know, go ahead. I know my role. So at which stage we can upload and reveal our data? I totally believe on the open science, and you know, this is also actually the purpose of the publications. We publish because we should reveal, you know, everything to the next people to continue our research. We should not hide anything. But sometimes there is a question, like when to publish. So the people, they used to say, oh, we train our students, you should not wait, you know, for the perfect experiment to collect all the data and then publish because they are the competition. So I would like to ask, if we follow this open science pathway that I believe that we should, like when we reveal our data. So if I will start to reveal my data and make my data open very early, then, you know, someone else will compete me, because I mean, we cannot exclude the competition. This is life. I mean, in order to be active, you should compete. I mean, in a good manner, eh? Not, you know, otherwise it's a sabotage, it's not a competition. What is your opinion on this? And second one, I remember that I had followed a presentation before 2 years in Marseille, and it was a German professor that he mentioned that there already exists a journal of negative results. Absolutely. Because we are learning from the negative results. This is, you know, this is like the strange thing. We published, you know, just, you know, the 5 minutes that, you know, the experiment will work, and all this effort, all the mistakes that we have learned in order to reach, you know, the top of the mountain, we never, you know, informed of the people. We never inform the others. So the others, they will do the same mistake.
Absolutely.
So what about when do we publish? You know, what is the right moment on the open science to publish? And what about this negative results journal?
Let me quickly fill the negative results first. There are more than one journal now, and we're starting to get disciplinary journals budding off for negative results. And ORE that you just heard about, you could also use that as a platform if there isn't one that you like. At least you know that behind the ORE is your own funder, so you could trust the platform. Honestly, a week ago, before you heard these two presentations, if there was excuses for not publishing negative results, now there's a few less. Yes, we don't get rewarded by the current research assessment system for doing it, so technically it looks like a waste of time. But that will change, and when it starts to change, or when you see the recruitment practices changing, where you're expected to show a track record, that's where you're at disadvantage. You could wait for the whole system to become perfect, so you start performing against it, or you could build up your own record and get ahead. So yeah, and then I hear the skeptics can offer very few convincing arguments not to publish negative results. When you look at the highly competitive pharmaceutical industry, they share negative results among them because they know it is a waste of money and time. So for academia to come up and say that's not how we do business sounds a little bit funny. And then the question, when is the right time? I think when is the right time to disclose your data? The answers, there isn't a black and white answer. The answers are a spectrum of answers depending on your discipline's practices. But let's take just the two extremes. I release data at generation with the metadata, fully disclose the data, or I sit on the data and I publish one or salami series of publications and only then I release. I think both are practiced by different disciplines and both are justifiable locally in those settings. Does publishing at generation equal stealing of the data? Theoretically, it's possible. Someone could run away and publish with it. If you've seen the latest documentary on Netflix about the black hole discovery a few years ago, they sat on it. They didn't talk about it. They published when they had it in hand. Fine, that's perfect. Many disciplines do publish a generation. In my own marine science, we actually stream instrumentation data on observing the ocean, the Earth in real time. NASA produces real data streams in real time. Does that mean that they get scooped? Well, no. It increases the collaborations. It increases the visibility of your effort. If you are a PhD, and you want to sit on the data for 2 years to allow you to publish some papers, I think that's a justifiable scenario. If you are sitting on a project that is 4 years and you would like to retain access of some of the data to allow all the colleagues to publish, that's fine. But release at publication and release deeply, release all of the underlying data sets with their own persistent identifiers in a suitable platform that allows you to collect even more citations if citations is what makes you get out of bed. But in any case, at the end of project, you're going to find out that legally you're obliged to release that data set no matter what you think about plagiarism or how you might get scooped. There are exceptions to that rule. They are highly specific and they concern national security, nuclear research, confidentiality of patients, right? Those cases cover a small percentage of our collective work. The majority of our work does not fall in those cases, and we have less and less of an excuse to share.
Thank you, Igor. Questions?
Well, I'm just curious to see where it will lead us, because in Turkey, it's true that it's really important where it is published, and I'm curious how. In fact, I will share this recording with my superiors, just to show them that there is this new thing coming up. I mean, they may know it, but I also know that they were just talking about how the promotions will take place, and they were talking about, especially I love that cycle that you shared, like, you know, each step will have some kind of importance, but for now, as I said, they just had a meeting, and for now the only thing that's so important is, okay, what's the result? Did you publish it or not? Like, they don't care what is inside that, you know, work. So, and then, Nessim, I was thinking about our studies. So maybe we can look at how we can kind of like convert it to this. So yeah, it's interesting. So thank you so much. I learned something new that I had no clue that it's happening in Europe. So
and you know, to add to Elif, you know, it's not only, you know, to publish the results, it's also, you know, the impact factor of the journals, because, yes, you know, during the promotions, you can publish. But you know, they will say you in which journals.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
But you know, at the end of the day, it's not this true. Also, the true is like what Ivo mentioned: how many citations your work will receive.
That's
this is
true.
important, and not the impact factor of the journal. because
Yeah.
the importance is the citations, like how the other people, they will perceive your work. So closing with this comment, I will say that, it's like probably, this open science, if your work deserves, it will take citations. If not, it will stay the same, I mean, even in Nature, there are publications that no citations have been received. However, that, the average impact factor of Nature is 60. But, this is an average.
And it's even worse than that because the high profile journals have a highest retraction rate. So
of course, but this is the challenge, Ivo. I mean, the hardest is the most beautiful.
And citations are increased by the visibility that is provided precisely by open science platforms.
The impact factor, I mean, the visibility is very important, but this does not exclude the quality. So if your work is of a quality, like it will receive citations, easier if it's an open access, because a lot of people, they can log in, where we don't have to use this Sci-Hub in order to download, things, no?
Mm-hmm. It's directly accessible, yes.
All right, so if, we have no more questions, I would like to thank again Iris and Ivo. I think that, yes, we are on time for this nice presentation. I think that the people that have not joined us, they have missed it, but, of course, I have, learned them, in a bad way. I'm uploading, then the YouTube video, and then they are sitting and they are watching. But thank you very much for this nice presentation. We are going to continue next Wednesday with Nissim. Nissim also have a comment from George Kalogerakos for excellent, presentations that we had today. And, as all the weeks, in the majority of the cases, the presentations are very good. And as Elif has mentioned, we are learning. I mean, we are learning every day and after each presentation. We have Nissim with us, who is going to be the next presenter next Wednesday at 4 o'clock CET. Nissim, do you want to reveal about your talk? What are you going to present?
Suggestions for teachers who teach mathematics, how to teach mathematics.
So I will send an email to the item project that this is an obligation to attend.
No obligation.
All right. So thank you very much again.
Thank you all.
And please, Iris and Ivo, send us, the PDFs of your presentation in order to share with all the people. And this is open science. Our website is an open science website, and our event. Okay. Bye, and thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.